What is up, Fantasyland? We're here for another Monday night tailgate. Big one. Will Russ cook? Will DULCICH finally have a breakout party? We're going to look at that tonight. Look at the battle. Look at the week coming. Look at the week that passed. And a lot more to help you win with another big guest in the district. Let's get to it.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We're back for another tailgate. And Theo, I'm just going to mute you because I think we're getting a bit of an echo. Theo's trying out a new mic, man. We're trying to upgrade the production here. So we're going to get that fixed up real quick. What up in the chat? What up, 1912? Guys, thanks for joining us tonight. Smash the like, smash the subscribe. You know how we do it. But for every Monday night, every Thursday night, we're bringing a big guest. We do 45 of hardcore fantasy. And tonight is no different. Theo, I'm going to go back to you, unmute, and let you walk this man in proper.
Yeah, so apologize for the technical difficulties. We're giving it a go tonight with the new webcam, new mic. But I'm happy to have my boy VLAD SEDLER of FTN Fantasy. If you play high stakes, especially to the NFFC people and the NFBC people, Vlad is a very well-known guy. He is a very successful football and baseball player. He also writes a tremendous article called The Fab Whisperer. Vlad, why don't you let everybody know where they can find your stuff and what you're coming out with during the fantasy football season?
Yeah, I mean, over at FTN, ftnfantasy.com, and every week on Tuesdays, as a matter of fact, writing it now, is my Fab Whisperer column that basically breaks things down for the high stakes drafts, the drafts with the 350 plus buy-ins for the prime times and the main events, and literally just breaking it down per position. Sorting it by, the players that you need to be targeting, fab bid amount ranges, and really sorting through. I mean, I'm, going down to the kickers and the defenses, and just so much that I'm finding out and digging into, looking for every edge we can get, right? Because every week when we're looking at our live scoring and you're seeing some of the points on the bench, or you're seeing some of the, the kickers that a lot of times people are just automatic, just clicking, okay, let's grab the guys from the best teams. We're not really diving in. So I'm trying to do a little bit of that extra so that we're not leaving points on the table. So there, and then at RotoGut on Twitter.
Quick follow-up. What is the worst number to end a fab bid with?
Man, the worst, it really depends what year, when, people are just so much savvier these days. And really the smart thing is to continue to mix it up, right? You don't want to leave any crumbs on the table. You don't want to leave people chasing like, oh, this guy's always ending with a 9. Let me just, kind of take it into the next, the next level. So, I don't know if there's a worse number. I know there are stats out there as far as, kind of what the best and worst are. It really just depends. Like I went through a phase where I was going, on the dot 40, right? Like if I like a player in the high 30s, I'll just hit that 40 or the 41 and maybe grab them. So I'm also trying to win them with as little of spread as possible because, again, I don't want to leave too much, wasted fab out there.
No, we definitely highly recommend your column. I write a waiver wire article. It's very difficult to do. You're coming out with it on a weekly basis, but you go very deep. You give recommended fab amounts. I think it's very, very helpful to people. You and Nelson Sousa, another friend of ours and a friend of the show, are really coming out with great stuff in terms of the high stakes content you're putting out at FTN. So we're stoked to get a chance to, talk some shop with you tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. And I'm a big fan of your show and you guys personally. And of course you, OG, one of the kings of Twitter now. I see, man, like your
crushing the memes, crushing the memes.
Meme
yeah,
king,
definitely the one-on-one. Theo's definitely the one-on-one of the GOAT of the memes right now. I was saying as a joke to Vlad, I'll stare at the same picture for 5 hours and couldn't come up with some of the stuff you come up with, man. We love it. Keep them coming. I'm sure Fantasyland, as you know, is loving it too with the likes. Guys, let's get into it, man. There's so much to talk about. Theo and I crushed some questions. We're not expecting to get through all of them. We're going to try to get through some of these tonight, the most important ones. I'm going to start in Tampa, man. Like the Bucks offense was, especially on our show, we were big fans of a lot of these pieces, including Brady, Gage going over there. Evans was already there. Godwin, you knew would come off the injury, and struggled a bit. Now you're hearing whispers about Brady off the field and that kind of trickling into what's happening on the field. I'm just curious, where are you with this offense? What pieces do you like moving up? And which one are maybe starting to worry you a bit?
Yeah, it's a difficult spot. I mean, I think everybody is well aware from the preseason the sort of issues falling around this team, and it's really hard to like quantify it or put a finger on it. But a lot of us in the high stakes community were just a little concerned. We're like, you kind of want to get ahead of things and not overinvest on players from a team that already seem to be having issues. I mean, all the receivers were out at some point in the preseason. Even Evans was a little banged up, and just suspension here. Brady's divorce, Gage banged up, Julio never ready. It's really kind of weird, really weird situation. Then, of course, they go ahead and a game where they were supposed to absolutely smash the Steelers, and Evans was supposed to, typically I consider myself like the Evans DFS whisperer, and I'm like, man, I'm all in. This is the week. And all of a sudden, just a couple catches for 34 yards or 45 yards, whatever it was. And you just don't know what to expect from this team. Obviously, people threw in high draft capital to grab, Mr. Evans and, third round pick. Godwin was a heck of a deal. I think he's the guy that, as long as he stays healthy over the course of the season, is going to return kind of the most bang for your buck. And Brady's in a tough spot, right? It's a lot of times it's just, it's matchup based, and you never know when he's going to go for 375 and 3 or just completely, just poop. So, it's a tough spot, and they just have this like bad aura around them from the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's Godwin's definitely the one that I'm very bullish on. His usage looks really, really good, and the schedule's setting up nicely for him. Evans, it just doesn't seem to be happening right now. I think you're using him, you're kind of forced to, but he seems like more of a spike week guy than a weekly guy right now. Fournette seems safe, but it's just the entire offense is just one that we really need to be realistic with. They're a middling offense. They're still going to win games, but they're very susceptible to ordinary teams like we're seeing this past weekend with Pittsburgh. And you don't really like the optics of Brady ripping apart his offensive line, after he's attending a wedding, he's traveling all over the country, he's missing practice. I get it. He's sort of a celebrity at this point, but it's got to be getting a little bit old to some of these players to have that kind of attitude on the sideline when you're not even there.
Yeah, and it's all really unpredictable, right? I mean, it just could be at some point, you never know, could just kind of decide to hang it up. I mean, we just don't know the details of his life and what's going on, but there are just so many things that can have a lot of repercussions throughout this offense. So, except for Kate Otten, right? He'll probably always just grab a couple balls.
Joe, the Harry Snowman had Otten in Tampa. He singled him out. Tampa right now 20th in scoring points per game. Evans giving you a wide receiver 9 so far, still a top 10, but like you said, not the consistency. And then who knows with some of these pieces in and out of the lineup as we move forward. And then hopefully Brady's got his head in the game, gets his head out of the party mode or whatever he's in right now, living the single life, or I don't even know what you call it. But Theo,
yes.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
So one JD and I were talking earlier. One player who the GOAT District has been big fans of, especially because we do a lot of dynasty-centric stuff around rookie draft season. Tyquan Thornton was a guy who was kind of a beat up draft pick. The Patriots were kind of maligned for using the pick on him. Some people had him as a day 3 guy. They took him on day 2. He's one of the fastest players in football. And we saw such an impressive debut from him this weekend. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown. He had 5 targets. And he also had 3 manufactured rushing attempts. We also saw a full snap game from Devontae Parker. It seems like we kind of got a little bit of clarity on the Patriots wide receiver situation. What are your thoughts on Thornton and Devontae Parker alongside Jacoby Myers in New England?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Belichick run offense. It's going to primarily run through Ramondre Stevenson and a healthy Damian Harris, who is always underrated. The guy gets in the box, he gets it done, even though he doesn't catch many passes. Isn't really fantasy sexy, so to speak. Jacoby Myers is just he's a great solid field stretcher. Can be a long big A-dot guy if they really operated that way. Really, the question mark is with the quarterbacks. Right now, you got the whispering of, maybe Zap is even a better option than Mac Jones. Who knows how that's going to play out? Of course, Mac Jones is their guy, but I guess time will tell. Tyquan Thornton is the type of guy that we want to be targeting this week in the high stakes land, because you're holding 20 roster spots, and even if you don't necessarily need him this week, he's a guy that can really kind of rise to, cream rises to the top. Talent always does. We saw that in that 2 touchdown game. And that's absolutely the type of guy we want to target over, grabbing the Marvin Joneses for, a few bucks and Devontae Parkers of the world. Like Tyquan Thornton can really make a difference, and especially possibly in the playoffs when you really need them. So we'll see. This will be an interesting game here. Next one here against the Bears, I believe. Probably going to be kind of like a slow paced run game, probably another Ramondre game. And, I don't know if Parker is necessarily a great start this week, but if somebody is in a pinch, then it could work out. It's just kind of every week, you just never know. You're going to get 3 out of him or 16. Very, 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 very low barrier for points.
I think you kind of nailed it with Thornton. I think a lot of people are going to kind of discount it because I don't know, people just were so negative towards him. And this is not to say his career will be in any sort of a trajectory, but you recall, you've been doing this a long time, how cheap people got Tyreek Hill for his rookie year, where he was this later round prospect. He broke out with a couple of big plays, and people kind of let him go on that waiver wire, maybe an 8% guy, and he ended up winning people leagues. So I think a guy with that kind of speed, if they're going to get all these manufactured touches for, obviously it's something that we've kind of got to pay in order to see the, week 2, but he's the guy I'm just very intrigued with right now.
Yeah. And, shout out to friend of the GOAT District, Matt Modica, who's a longtime friend of mine and obviously a high stakes crusher. I mean, he was in the Thornton market last week. That's how you do it. You grab him for a few bucks before, the rest of the market kind of catches on. You'll probably see some triple digit bids on him going off this past week. And then at that point, you always want to get in early on those type of plays.
Damn, Matt runs pure.
Yeah.
Let's get into a big matchup from this weekend was obviously, guys, the Bills and the Chiefs. Bills again come out of it, tightly, a little tight, 24-20. Is any team going to beat the Bills, Vlad, in your opinion, as you look at their schedule moving forward? And I'm just wondering, when you look at this Bills offense, other than Diggs, Davis, like, is there anyone else that's like a must starter that you're kind of looking to start, whether it's like a matchup kind of start, just because you see it really kind of spread out after that when you're looking at the production? And then talk about Juju, if you can, on the other side of the field. We finally see him getting that touchdown and giving you a nice week in fantasy with week 6.
Yeah, that was a great game. And of course, Tony Romo, the man that he is, nailed the exact score, which is really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a game there that they could lose. They probably will lose a game, maybe even 2. It'll happen at some point. Things won't go their way. But as far as the pieces, obviously Stephon Diggs, top wideout. Gabriel Davis is amazing. In DFS, I'm always rolling with him when he's low percentage, just because you just never know when he can catch one of those big bombs. I think Dawson Knox week to week is going to be really tough to predict and project. And then, I think maybe we'll see a little bit of changing of the guards with the third man there. with Isaiah McKenzie kind of coming off a really bad game. Of course, he had the concussion prior, maybe wasn't, all the way there. But Khalil Shakir looks like an absolute stud. He's somebody that people should have been buying in on the last couple of weeks. Singletary, we may never see this season the type of stretch that we saw out of him down the stretch last year, right? It was, those 7-8 games, he was scoring a touchdown or two almost every single game. For him, I think also, people probably have him on rosters where you have a tough decision to make. It's like, him versus, maybe somebody else that, a Mostert or whomever, you don't know who to start week to week. And I think with Singletary, it really is games that have maybe a lower spread, like maybe if they're facing Minnesota or maybe a high-paced game like Detroit that they have coming up in a few weeks. Those are the type of matchups I would roll with him as opposed to games where they're maybe favored by 7 to 10, only because in those types of cases, you might see a little bit more James Cook mix in over there. As far as Juju, man, I was happy to see that game. He is one of my highest rostered players across NFFC, and I played him in DFS. Just needed it to happen. Started him everywhere, and you knew it was coming at some point, especially when everyone on Twitter was like, "Oh, Juju's, he's dust. He's dust." That's when it's coming.
We had Mike Leone on this past week, and he's a big Juju guy, and he was talking him up, and he also was banking on him in a lot of these high stakes leagues. So there's a lot of very sharp people that were on Juju in the preseason, and maybe this game could be like a springboard to seeing a few weeks like this. They certainly need a wide receiver who's consistent for them.
Yeah, and I mean, that's interesting. And we even knew it before the season started. Like, it's going to be tough to predict where it's going to come from, where the production is going to come from outside of Travis Kelce. We've seen the Clyde Edwards-Helaire spike weeks and then just been absolute, garbage the last few weeks. MVS is the top receiver one week, the next week, an absolute goose egg. So it's really tough, but Juju and PPR should be a pretty solid constant. And I think you're not going to get, 6+ touchdowns out of him, but you should get some, 80+ receptions and a really nice season.
Theo, I was going to ask you real quick. I sent 2 seconds. I think I'd asked you about this one. 2 seconds for Gabe Davis and Juju right before the game started Sunday morning. So I feel good about that trade. How do you feel about the values?
I mean, I think that's awesome. Was that a triflex or was that in
Nope.
a regular?
No, just a regular super flex.
I think you did very, very well with that. I think that this year's rookie class, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, is going to have a number of prospects we saw, like Bryce Young. There's a couple of these guys that people are extremely high on, Stroud. So you kind of avoid that with the second rounders, but those could be some nice players. But Gabe Davis and Juju, you're going to get some production there, JD. I think that's a go for it type trade and kind of a no brainer for me.
Let's talk running backs, Theo. I know you've got a couple rookies that you want to ask about.
So Tyler Algier is interesting. Caleb Huntley and Algier each had 15. I believe Huntley had 16 and Algier had 15 rushing attempts. So they had 31 combined rushing attempts this weekend. The Falcons, much to the chagrin of fantasy managers, are running the ball a ton and using their running backs a lot. We don't need to get into Kyle Pitts and Drake London. That's that could be a whole show. But what's your expectations for Damian Williams coming back this week? I have him stashed a number of places. I know Dan Williamson does as well, and JD does. I'm intrigued. What are your thoughts on him?
I have a few Damian Williams as well. I did have to drop a couple just to fill in for backup tight end when Freiermuth was out. But it's going to be a messy backfield, and then obviously Mariota runs a little bit. By the way, Caleb Huntley killed me this weekend. I did one of those. I was cruising on the baseball, the underdog pick'ems. So like pick three, and just collect money. I decided to just kind of go for it a little bit on the football one, and I had like the Ramonde touchdown, a couple other things. Everything hit, but I randomly saw this, and obviously it was a trap. It was like Caleb Huntley under 33 rushing yards. I'm like, all right, game script here. San Francisco is going to dominate. Maybe Damian will come back. It was early enough in the week. I thought maybe he might return. And then either way, Algiers are their top guy. Little did I know Huntley was going to go off and just, get so many carries. They would, run with the game script, but he's pretty talented, right? I mean, he looks good enough. I think that's going to be a messy backfield for time to come, right? Because if Huntley's playing well, you got eventually Cordero Patterson back, or so we hope. It's going to be a real mess for fantasy, but there could be a couple of games in there for Damian, who I don't think is quite done yet. I think he's got a little bit left in the tank.
No, for
They're
sure.
deep. They're deep at running back, man. Even with Avery back there, I mean, he's young, so it's it's a good problem to have for a team like this, right? A young offense like this that's kind of trying to figure itself out. Hollywood Brown. I mean, unfortunately, I know I have some stacks with Kyler. Whether it's best ball, Dino, wherever. I know all of us probably have pieces of them. So now with the injury, I mean, the good news is it's not season ending. It's not as bad as they initially thought from what we're hearing today from Rappaport. Last I saw was about 6 weeks, I think, that 6 I saw.
Weeks. Yeah, and he's getting another opinion. So,
yeah,
call it could be a little less, could be a little more.
Could be 5 or so, not as bad as we thought, but talk to us, Vlad. How do you see the ripple effect happening in the next, maybe until he does come back? Now, obviously, we've got Hopkins coming back off a suspension. So a lot of moving pieces. What do you see happening moving forward in these next few weeks from Atlanta?
I mean, I think Kyler and DeAndre Hopkins do have a little bit of connection from last season, and obviously a lot of people think that Hopkins is just not that elite receiver that he has been. Time will tell, right? I don't want to make any big claims on that front, but does the timing happens to be perfect for there not to be any sort of issue there. DeAndre Hopkins comes in, he's going to be the top dog. Robbie Anderson moving in there, man, that's just, I don't know what's going to happen there. I do know that he is worth bidding on just because of the team context. It's a lot better and much different when you have somebody like Kyler, who the jury's still out on. He is having kind of an odd season. And had that 100-yard game yesterday, right? But you just kind of gotta get him right. In online championships, the 350 on NFFC is available, I think, in 16% of leagues. If I'm bidding between those two, I think probably Thornton, I would go for him ahead of him, just because he's a young kid, not a headache like Robbie is. I mean, what's next is gonna go with the ROBY. Like you just don't know what's happening with this kid.
Kingsbury and Robbie Anderson it's just an interesting dynamic with the galaxy braining of Kingsbury. It's a great landing spot for Anderson, in my opinion, just because of the timing of the Hollywood Brown injury. But yeah, I'd be with you. Thornton is the one I would much prefer. If Wan'Dale Robinson happens to be out there in some of these home leagues, I'd much prefer him as well. But it will be interesting to see. DeAndre Hopkins should come back and step into a nice target share. Rondale Moore, I think, will be about the same, but at least he'll be consistent with the targets. I think you can bank on him being about a wide receiver 3 right now. But Robbie will, at least have a role as a field stretcher. I think he's better than AJ Green right now, and they certainly need another body out there. The offense is a mess. They it's insane to get 100 yards rushing out of Kyler Murray, and he still doesn't crack the top 12 quarterback scoring this week. It's painful for us Kyler Murray managers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird, the whole offense as a whole, right? Because you look at the sum of all the pieces, the individual players, there's a lot of fantasy talent on there, and it's just odd to see them get absolutely crushed. Like even like Seattle defense is one of the top scorers of the week among DSTs. And I mean, the dynamics are constantly shifting. When does James Conner return, and to what role? Has he not been healthy all year? Now Brown is out, who's clearly been their best player. How does Hopkins step in? So many questions right now, but obviously I think folks that have been waiting and holding on to DeAndre Hopkins are going to be happy. So you got this game on Thursday at New Orleans, and then the schedule opens up a little bit. Minnesota, Seattle, Rams should be a fun little stretch.
And we've learned, guys, you never know who the quarterback's gonna click with. You know what I mean? Where that they just get on the field together and just magic happens. You never know, man. Robbie, he's got talent. He can open up the game. So you never know what it comes out. And like you said, this time of year, I think he is a good waiver wire pickup.
Jeff Wilson has seen his usage go down now for 2 straight weeks. He had a fantasy dud this past week. It's a guy that people were very happy to have. He's been producing for people. How worried are you about this situation after the past 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had been just kind of running with the job and getting his 16, 18 carries per game. And I think it was prior to week 6, I think it was like 3 out of 4 games were just like nice and exceeded fantasy value, which is great. But I'm not catching many passes. But I mean, this past week was just game script. Unfortunately, it was just one of those scenarios where he played 50% of the snaps, only got 7 carries. Only 1 target because they were down early, and that's just kind of the way it goes. And that's very rare to see there in San Francisco. This is going to get to be another messy backfield. Obviously there are, I don't know if they're ready for Tyrion Davis-Price, but he's somebody that can come in and step in. And then eventually Elijah Mitchell comes back. I know if you're tempted to drop him now, definitely do not, especially in leagues like NFFC where you don't have the IR spot. I've been trying to scoop up as many as I can. JD and I were looking before the show that he's likely going to coming back after their bye week, which I believe is week 9 or 10. So we'll see. Eventually, Jeff Wilson will sort of fall to the behind Elijah, or at least so we think. But really, this next game here, it's going to be against the Chiefs. That'll be an interesting one for him to project. I don't know if he's just an automatic starter, but that should be, at least I would think, a pretty close game, and maybe a little bit more passing from Jimmy G and getting more Debo and Ayuk involved than Wilson running.
Question for you both. Not to get off topic here, but we have Christian McCaffrey rumors. Not even want to try to guess, where he could get traded to, if he gets traded at all. But who would you rather have? Deonta Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, or neither one of them if the trade does go down?
I mean, I'm so invested in Deonta Foreman. I need something. So I was a big fan of him last season and got him on a few teams and helped me down the stretch run when he was dominating for Tennessee and had a couple of those 100+ yard games. He had a few more carries than Chuba this past week. The usage has been a little odd between the two of them, but we saw him get, Deonta got 5 carries. I think he's a little bit more elusive. Not as good as a pass catcher, of course, but I think Foreman would kind of be the early down guy, and then perhaps Chuba's got some some issues with kind of holding the line and some some blunders that he's had, I think, over the last few weeks, which I think has affected his playing time a little bit. But he's obviously solid, and I think that Ricci guy has even been getting a few snaps here and there.
JD, speak up for your fellow Canadian.
Chuba. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because anytime CMC is involved, it's hard to say what these guys can really do. But you saw last year, before Foreman kind of went on a tear, we have seen flashes from Chuba, and we've seen, what he can do with very limited opportunity. But I'm with Vlad. I think, especially at the fact that they brought in a guy who looked really strong as a 3-down back last year for a few weeks. It's hard to see them kind of hand this over, especially with the way this offense is rolling. I feel like it's going to be a split, and it's going to be hard to really depend on either one. I mean, maybe you want to have one of these guys on your bench in case one of them really shines and takes over, or there's another injury. I'm always the way I approach it with running backs. There's a very high chance of injury, so I always want whatever piece that I can get, basically, just to have a piece. Because like if CMC is gone, they're definitely going to be having to fill some space with running the rock. Who's it going to be? I don't know that we're going to have one of these guys take it over right out of the gate.
By the way, guys, just on a totally similar topic, because we're talking about running back trades. I was going to tweet about this, but then I just rather bring it up here on the show. I thought about like Cam Akers, where would be the ideal spot for him? And I know a lot of people are polarized on him, but I was thinking like if you, not for fantasy necessarily, but you get him on the Giants and you have a legit, sort of backup and somebody, I know maybe it's not a perfect fit because he's not like the best pass catcher, but you get him on a team with Barkley that he could spell Barkley once in a while, or in case something happens to Barkley. But I was looking, I really couldn't find a much better situation, at least from a real life standpoint, than the Giants. I don't know if you guys looked at any
for Akers, you mean?
Yeah,
I like Miami a little. I just think Miami lacks a younger running back, and I'd still qualify him as a guy who's kind of on the younger end. I think the Florida teams, Miami and Jacksonville, always seem to add these like FSU, Miami, and Florida guys. It seems like you could get them for cheap. Mostert is a guy that never really holds up. Edmonds has been disappointing. They elevated like Salvon Ahmed, so they're going like deep at the running back spot. I'd like to see Akers, but I don't have much hope for him. But that was like one team that kind of jumped out to me. And hey, how about Atlanta? They seem to love mixing in as many running backs as possible. That would also make a little bit of sense.
I just want to see him in a cool uniform. That's all. I like Cam Akers.
I was going to say, I don't know that he has anything left from what we've seen, but I mean, maybe he does find a home, and we see these guys now especially if they're young, if they're younger and they don't have as much threat off the tires. In Akers' case, being off with injury. Sorry, Theo.
He could go play near you, JD, with the Toronto Argonauts. Too.
CFL. Oh, we got the chat's rocking. By the way, you guys, I can't even keep up with the chat. You guys are awesome tonight. Madison for Akers, straight up. There you go. There's a trade.
Madison,
all right.
I think the Rams would like that trade if they can get an Alexander Madison for Akers. I think they would take that one.
And then good luck telling the difference between him and Darrell Henderson if they have similar uniforms.
There you go.
CMC is going to end up in LA Ram. Watch. Mariota on the other side of the ball, guys. We talked about San Fran. You hear the chat talking about the running backs. I'm just curious. We saw Mariota run for 50, touchdown on the ground, 2 in the air, but he was really spreading the ball. Like if you look at kind of where the targets went, I'm just wondering, Theo, you joked about us not talking about London and Pitts. How do you see this offense? Like, do you think Mariota is kind of the rest of the season starter? Do you think that they've seen enough from him to kind of give him that? Or do you think that the rookie gets the opportunity at some point still? And B, how do you see London and Pitts producing rest of season just because of kind of this, spread the ball offense that we've seen, especially after a big win like this against San Fran? Sorry, Vlad, I'll go to you first, or Theo, whoever. Theo, go ahead.
No, I think that, Mariota, he had 2 touchdown passes. He was like 13 for 14. Like, we're upset about the usage for London and Pitts, but they're still out on the field. Mariota has some weapons. The offensive line is playing above their heads, and they're effectively running the ball. I think as long as they're close to 500, you're not going to see Desmond Ridder. If the things go south, then they'll put in Ridder. But like you said, Mariota, I've written about him in the waiver wire column because he does have that rushing upside. It's similar to Daniel Jones a little bit. They're both, kind of these some of their parts type teams where neither one's going to put up huge numbers, but they're each going to get a few rushing attempts a game. So if you're in a real pinch, yeah, you can go with Mariota. But I do think he's done enough to hold off Ridder. And I know there was a lot of talk about that for many weeks. I like, how Mariota looks.
Yeah, it's not quite the dumpster fire that a lot of people thought it would be, right? Even the defense is, the corners are pretty solid. We're not looking for, contending for the division. Anything can happen, right? The Saints are a mess and they don't have any healthy receivers. Tampa Bay could fall apart. We doubt it, but it's possible. But they're one of the few, 7 of the 16 teams in the NFC have a plus point differential, and they're one of those teams. They're 3-3. They haven't necessarily even had the easiest schedule, to be honest. They faced, the Rams, the Saints, the Bucks, the Niners, Browns. It's really impressive. Even though the fantasy side of things have been kind of a mess. And of course, what we really want are return on investment on those Kyle Pittses, right? Because we spent 3rd round picks on him. In some cases, we really paid up for him. So we want to see that happen. We know he's capable of it. He just needs to start to get it done. Wasn't it his first touchdown in America this last week?
Yes. He had one in London last year and then this one this week, and it's mind-boggling, but here we are.
Yep.
The chat's just cracking me up tonight. The Jets, Theo, your beloved Jets.
I live on Long Island, so I'm always, constantly pulling for the Jets. I am not a Jets fan, but I do like when the Jets win. But I also like when my fantasy teams win. And right now we're seeing nothing out of Elijah Moore, and Garrett Wilson has completely come back to earth. You saw Braxton Berrios find the end zone, and Corey Davis is hanging around. There's no Jets wide receiver right now that looks fantasy viable. How are you handling the situation? And I'll add in, are we cutting Tyler Conklin at this point?
Yeah, the Jets, it's like the Breece Hall show at this point. What that guy's doing is just absolutely incredible, even just sort of breaking away from Michael Carter, who's a decent running back in his own right. But the receivers are a mess, right? It's all gone downhill since they went from Flacco and, back to Wilson. And even our great Garrett Wilson, right? That just seemed like such a gem. And we know he's incredibly talented. We know, in the right team context, the guy would be, a true alpha, and we know he's capable of that. The Elijah Moore thing really, that really sucks. I got actually lucky myself. I checked my shares. 25 NFFC teams. I only have one. And I tried. I really did try to get him, but the hype just kind of really got out of control. And that's a scenario where you got lucky. Just kind of a not great situation there for Elijah Moore, for Garrett Wilson. I have Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson both on my home team, the Yahoo League for 20 plus years. And I can't start either with any confidence. Those guys just kind of just hanging out on my bench. I'm afraid to drop them, but and then Tyler Conklin.
How deep is your home league, Vlad?
It is just 16.
So are you considering dropping Elijah Moore in a 16-team roster league?
He's on the I mean, he's the closest thing I would have to a drop. I haven't looked at this week's these week's options, but I'm also the type that hangs on a little bit longer than you should, and I don't care if I get ripped on Twitter or whatever. Like, I'm still gonna get, I'm still a believer in Allen Robinson, and he kind of gave me a little bit this week. He maybe not in my lineup, but just gives me a little bit of hope. So I kind of try to stick to my gut on certain things.
We got a quick, I know you like these, Theo. Let me just find it. We had a quick OTC rest of season here with Garrett Wilson or our boy Wandale. I was nice to see Wandale this weekend produce rest of season. Which ones do you like better, Vlad, first?
Can I ask you, Theo, did you say, is that tongue in cheek that you like these rest of seasons, or you like them, or you don't?
I do like the rest of season ones. There's no tongue in cheek. I think rest of season rankings are awesome. JD, was that sarcasm, JD?
No, not at all. No, usually you like when we do OTC, so it's
love the
OTC for the season.
Love the OTCs. Yeah.
No, I only ask because I am, maybe it's a baseball thing, but when someone's asking for rest of 100 games of the season, it's really tough to say because people get hurt and in these stretches. But in football, not as long of a season, so it does make sense. And you do have to kind of have conviction at some point. You're right.
Which one would you rather have on your NFFC rosters?
I'd rather have Wandale, and only because it's less crowded to me. I think he really stands out there. It's obvious already from those limited snaps in that first game that Daniel Jones was looking his way. And the receiver room is just, it's abysmal. Richie James ain't going to be anything. So, that's the guy. And it really just comes down to team context for me. As far as talent wise, Garrett Wilson was my favorite wideout heading into this draft. Targeted him a whole bunch. I wish he was on a different team or just in a different scenario, but he's like the guy that I think could be a huge stud and possible future Hall of Famer.
Wilson, obviously for me in Dynasty, but in redraft, JD, I think you got to go with Wandale. I think that, like Vlad said, he's got the clear path. The Jets situation right now is just, like Vlad said, you can start Breece Hall, and that's about the only Jet you can start on a weekly basis. I think I would go with Wandale Robinson over Garrett Wilson, which is just wild to me right now.
Yeah.
If I told you, I would have been shocked a month ago if anybody told me that they would take Wandale over Garrett Wilson, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, check out Wheeler out there in Twitter land. He puts out his rankings. He's one of the top rankers every year on Fantasy Pros. Go check him out. I think it's at FF_Wheeler, if I'm not mistaken. Him and Theo are pretty much my go-tos with articles that come out weekly, especially during the season. All right, you guys know Wandale's my most owned player, so I'm not on FFPC. I'm not I don't need to tell you guys.
And maybe talk about your T. Higgins too. Just JD, we love getting that flex out.
Well, my three are Robinson, Bateman, and Higgins. Bateman not looking so good right now. Hopefully, we got to turn around on that. But Higgins, when he's on the field, love him, and of course Wandale seeing a bit of a flash, and hope that it continues to glow as we go into the season. Guys, we
got to get to DULCICH. Thoughts on DULCICH from Vlad?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Imagine we went out with that with the new title format, Theo. That would have been champ. Vlad, talk to us about this. This guy's like the tight end Cinderella or whatever of the offseason. Just everybody going bananas over this guy. And now with Albert O kind of fading out, how do you feel about the man? Is tonight the coming out party?
Yeah, Albert O not only fading out, inactive. So and Eric Saubert, is that his name? Saubert?
You don't need to know his name because
he's a little banged up.
Doesn't matter, Vlad. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's a little banged up. I mean, DULCICH, he's the truth, man. I mean, I played DFS college twice last season, and I played him both times, and he just smashed, and so I already have an affinity for him. I'm playing him in Showdown and DFS, and tonight, even if he sucks, so be it. Part of me almost wants him to suck because I want to grab him on my remaining NFFC teams where he's available. The problem there is last week when Freermuth was out, I had to prioritize someone I knew for sure was going to come off IR and play. So I went into the, the Gentry, bin, and that didn't work out too well, Zach Gentry. So, but I love him. Think he's going to be a stud. I don't know about today necessarily, but over the course of the season, somebody that I think Russell Wilson can trust. Hey, maybe he turns Russell Wilson's season around. Who knows?
I was going to say, do you think Russ cooks tonight, Vlad?
Russ, I think he gets the pot going and maybe a little bit turns it on, but I think burns.
Then he goes to bed, burns the house down.
The food.
It's a microwavable meal that's not a bad, like a Trader Joe's level microwavable meal from Russell Wilson.
I'll call it Latavius Murray touchdown though. That'll put out there.
Love that.
There it is. Latavius Murray touchdown. I picked up a lot of Murray. You know what? Let's. Where are we? We're almost at 8:15, Theo. I think we'll cut it out. We could keep going all night. We'll get Vlad on for a longer format. Vlad, remind the people where they can find all your goodness. We appreciate you hanging out with us tonight and sharing all your insight. And good luck with the rest of your season, brother.
Thank you so much, JD, Theo. Really appreciate it. Vlad Sedler at RotoGut on Twitter. You can find my work over at ftnfantasy.com. If you play any medium to high stakes, or even just your basic home leagues, come check it out. Lots of great talent over there, including a friend of the pod, Nelson Souza, one of the best players around. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. And go DULCICH.
Theo, we got the OG Livewire, your waiver wire show dropping tomorrow. What else we have rest of the week, my friend?
Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be kind of wild for me because I'm going on with Matt Kelly after the OG Livewire. And then we've got Josh Larkey coming on, another big friend of the show who actually works with our own Wheeler over at the 33rd team. Larky's been on the pod. How many times now, JD? This is like his fourth time on.
I think so. We've done too many, dude. I can't keep up.
Crushes it every single time. So Larky
totally does.
And then we'll be back again Thursday. We're back again tomorrow. We'll be back again Thursday. So we're bringing it multiple times a week in the district.
Guys, smash the like, smash the subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You don't miss it. We keep bringing in the big guests, the big shows. Enjoy the big game tonight. Hopefully you get the points you need to get the W's in your leagues, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Who you got in this game tonight?
Chargers.
Charger? What's the spread? I don't even know what the spread is in this one.
You know, I got to check the spread. I did not bet on this one. Let me see.
I usually have that page up every time. And of course, I always think we're going to be done before. So it's 4. The spread is 4. I thought it was at 3.5, maybe. Maybe it moved. Yeah. Chargers at home. I don't know, man. Maybe the Broncos pull something off.
I think the Chargers take care of business in LA. But like you said, I mean, I need some Sutton points in a few leagues. And I would like to see Dulcich get off to a fast start. I hate having a Monday night sweat with a Nathaniel Hackett offense, but I do need some Sutton points.
Yeah, the FFPC boards are looking green, so we did all right this weekend.
We did okay, but a couple other leagues and then just in NFFC I have a few Cortland Sutton teams. It's the all play week. I think I'm safe, but you always need those extra points.
Yeah, hopefully tonight some Denver action. helps us. All right, buddy. Tonight was fun.
Yeah, awesome, man. Good show.